Welcome everyone to our Noteflight Learn webinar. I really appreciate your time in joining us tonight, and if you did not join us, that's okay because this video will be available for quite a while and you'll be able to use it to learn about using Noteflight Learn in the classroom. So as I go through the webinar tonight, if you have questions at any time, there is a questions panel on the right side of your screen, and you can feel free to type questions as they come up. I'll go for about 25 or 30 minutes talking about all the features of Noteflight Learn, and then I will read through your questions and answer all of the questions that you have. I know that on this webinar we have about a third of you are current Noteflight Learn customers, and 2/3 are people that are interested in Noteflight Learn. So I'll start with a brief overview of the features, and I will go into more and more detail about how we could use all the areas of the site. So without further ado, let's jump right in and talk about Noteflight. So Noteflight Learn is a platform that we can use for many ways. First of all, it's a platform for teaching music creation in a more advanced way, allowing every student to have an actual software to create music. It's also a platform for learning music with features like audio recording and content built in. We also have tools for performance feedback and assessment, allowing you to easily create assignments and have students send in recordings of their performances of either repertoire you give them, repertoire you use from our Noteflight library, or repertoire that they create themselves. We also have the opportunity to access hundreds and hundreds of scores of digital content that is both included in Noteflight Learn as well as some really cool stuff that you can add on to your subscription. So Noteflight Learn, our idea is that we want every student to have a creation tool that they can use on any device. Everyone using Noteflight Learn has our full premium notation editor. So when you purchase Noteflight Learn for your school, every student and teacher in your Noteflight Learn site has all Noteflight features. So they, first of all, can create unlimited music in their account. They can also take advantage of activity templates where you are able to easily create assignments and have students complete them without editing your original score and keeping track of all the students' work. And I'll show that here in a minute. Also, we have included audio recording. You can record audio into any musical score using your Mac, PC, or Chromebook. In every score, there's multiple ways to collaborate and there's multiple ways to give feedback on using the product as well as any of the assignments the students have done. So every score is an opportunity to immediately have a dialogue with students about their performance or about their composition directly in the musical score. We offer unlimited groups inside of Noteflight Learn, so you have many ways to organize all of your students, where you can organize them by class, by instrument, by section, or you can even organize them by genre of music. You can even create groups for certain projects. It's totally up to you. Students can belong to as many groups as you'd like them to belong to. And then we also offer integrated content. So with Noteflight Learn, you get hundreds of included scores that you can use for arranging quick arrangements, you can use for warm-ups, you can use for sight reading, you have popular melodies you can use for composition starters, you have composition activities, you have lessons for music theory, so you have all of these things in here that are totally adaptable, and we are adding to that library constantly, as well as I'm going to show you all the other content we have in Noteflight Learn that are all fully editable, adaptable Noteflight files. So we also offer direct integration with, of course, Google Classroom, which is our webinar coming up on Thursday, and Canvas, Moodle, Schoology, Blackboard, and many other sites that use LTI for integration. So you can get Noteflight Learn as your own standalone site, or you can have it integrated. And if you're interested in Google Classroom, the webinar on Thursday is going to be all about Google Classroom integration. But I will talk about some of the differences tonight for those that are watching this one as well. So with that being said, let's jump over to Noteflight and let's talk about what you get when you purchase Noteflight Learn. So just to review, Noteflight is a free account that anyone can use. So you have a Noteflight basic account, you're welcome to use that. You can use up to 10 scores. And you could share with the whole community, but you are limited on the amount of instruments and obviously the amount of scores you can create. With Noteflight Learn, you're actually getting your own site where you can actually access all Noteflight features with every student. So Noteflight Learn itself is your own website, not on noteflight.com, but instead on whatever website you choose to set up. And you can set up schoolname.sites.noteflight, and all of your students log into that. So the first thing that Noteflight Learn does is it's completely secure. We don't collect any student data. We don't collect any student emails. You don't need any student information to set up the accounts. When you purchase Noteflight Learn, you just create usernames for your students. That could be any name that you'd like them to be. Or, as I'll show with the Google Classroom integration, you could sync with Google to automatically sync to your Google Classroom, and all of the students log in with their Google logins. Or you could integrate Noteflight Learn with your other LMS, such as Canvas or Moodle or Blackboard or Schoology or others, where the students use their login to those LMSs, then to enter Noteflight. So there's basically 3 different ways, but it's all the same price and it's all the same feature set. So Noteflight Learn is completely safe for students at any age, and we don't collect any student data. So let's just go into a Noteflight Learn site and see what it looks like. So notice I've just went into my site, which is very creatively named schooldemo.sites.noteflight. So this is an example of a Noteflight Learn site, and you'll see that the color is teal, and the name of my school is actually here in the left, letting me know that I'm inside my Noteflight Learn site. So I have my home list of scores, and then as the admin or the teacher right now, I can go in and I can create a musical score, and I can assign it to my students. I can access my groups, or I could go manage my site. So first of all, the easiest way to set up accounts in Noteflight Learn, let me get back to the pages, you have your manage site right at the top. And this is something that the owner of the site, the teacher that's the admin of the Noteflight Learn site, will always be able to see. And you will be able to go in and add members. And like I said, you can add members just as easy as clicking add students and make up a name for them. And I'll add a student named August Webinar. And now all I have to do is send this URL to my student and say log in with August Webinar. It'll prompt them to create a password, and they'll be in. If I want to remove students, I can easily click any student and just remove their account. So you have full access to add and remove accounts. Same with other teachers. So you can have multiple teachers in one site using Noteflight Learn with their students. And the same way you work with students, you can also add teachers as well. So a user in Noteflight Learn could be either a student or a teacher. When you have other teachers involved in your site, these teachers have the ability to create groups, to add students. They can do everything in the site really except add other teachers. So there's one admin user that controls the whole site, and this could be someone at the school or even the district level. And then there's teachers inside the site that can do everything else except add other teachers. And we'll talk about Google integration on Thursday and how that works, but it's very similar. There's an admin that syncs the account, and then you can have unlimited teachers and students inside the account working with their classes. So we also offer groups. So what we like to do before we even get into using Noteflight is organize your students. And I have a few demo groups here. These can be classes, these can be sections, they can be anything you like it to be. But a group is essentially a collection of people and musical scores. And inside groups, you also have the options to create forums, but of course, if you don't want students to use these forums, you can disable them as well. It's totally up to you. So if you want students to have a place to talk clarinet shop talk, you could totally create a clarinet forum. Actually, there it is, clarinet shop talk, look at that. I must have made that joke before. But, or you can turn these forums off. So you have a list of scores. Here's all the scores that have been shared to the clarinet group. And then here's all the members of the clarinet group. Like with any group, I can just select students that are in my account to join. So I'm going to put my new friend August Webinar in the clarinet group. Now, as soon as I do that, this student can now access everything that's inside of the scores, all of the scores that are already inside the group. So as that student gets added, they'll be able to log in and they'll see that they're a member of this particular group, and they'll be able to see all of the scores. So one way to use groups is to add scores to it ahead of time, and then if you want students to be able to access a collection of material, you can simply have the students join the group. Now right now I'm actually have this particular group set up where I, as the teacher, add the students to it, but if you don't want to have to add every single student, you totally don't have to. You can just make the group wide open, and that means any student can find the group and just join themselves. So if you have large classes, you could tell your students, hey, clarinets, go join the clarinet group, and they could do it themselves. Or if you'd like to add them yourselves, you can of course do this. Totally up to you. So we give you full flexibility in how you'd like to use groups in your own teaching environment. So let's jump in next and talk about using Noteflight a little bit. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a new score. And with our editor, we have lots of cool features that make learning to use Noteflight and teaching Noteflight to students really easy. So you have a bunch of templates you could start with. I'm just going to start with a treble clef score right here. And then as far as adding notes, you can just type them in. I can change the duration of that note. And you have all of these tools on your palette. So just a couple quick notes on the editor. At the left side, you have all of your palettes for your musical function. So I select a note, and I can use the palettes on the left to edit or do whatever function I would like to that note. And so these are actually organized in musical categories. In fact, a good exercise, especially for younger students, or actually sometimes even high school students don't realize, is talking about these categories and asking them what elements of music affect tempo. Write down everyone you see. Now let's see what Noteflight uses. What elements of music affect rhythm? What elements affect dynamics? In talking about these organizational categories, I'm always about the teachable moment. I always try to find a teachable moment. So I actually, in trying to show students how to navigate Noteflight, I use this opportunity to sort of brainstorm about different musical features. So everything you need is on the left, and you can open or close this palette. I prefer to leave this open and size my scores to fit right on the screen, just like how it is right now. This works really well for me because I can edit and do my music, but I can always go over here and just hover and grab anything I want to grab as far as a feature in Noteflight. Now, if you don't know where something is in Noteflight, at any point, you can go to the Help menu and search. Let's say I want to figure out how to slur. I can search slur, and we actually show you in the editor on the left, you see it popped up, where slur is. Or you could just click it right here, and we'll apply the slur to the object you selected. So I refer to this as the put your hand down button, because when I teach classes of students and they say, Mr. Malinza, how do I say, have you searched the Help menu, and that hand just slowly goes down. And so it's now a rule that you have to search the help before you ask me how you can do something. Another thing I try to do is I try to make sure that students know that even though you can just type whatever you want in here and click it, really pay attention to where we're showing you this feature exists and pay attention to the shortcut command. So I try to tell them to challenge themselves. Only search slur once and try to remember that S is the shortcut. So next time you can just hit S. The more shortcuts you learn, the faster you'll be in creating music. So that's a helpful tip. Also, our user guide is here, and so anytime you search in the Help menu, we bring up the user guide, and you can actually search this item in the Noteflight user guide. One point about the user guide is it's in the same order as the palettes on the left of the score. So it goes score, edit, duration, and if we go back to the editor, we say we have score, edit, duration, rhythm. So the user guide's in the exact same order. So if you're in a situation where it's like, oh man, what does this create system button do? Well, you can pay attention and say, well, the create system is in the layout, so let's actually go to the layout and figure out what create system does, and we can actually click on it, and it takes me exactly to what this is. Also, everything you click in the user guide is its own dedicated URL. When I set up assignments for students and I know I'm introducing a new feature that may be a layout or editing section, or if I'm introducing a new palette, like it's time to add dynamics to your music, let's talk about it. A lot of times when I'm doing this type of thing, I will actually, in my assignment, whether I'm using Google or Canvas or something like music first or anything where I'm doing the assignment, I will just click Dynamics Palette. I will copy this URL in the assignment for students and say, hey, we're introducing Dynamics. Your assignment is to do this. By the way, here's the link to the guide where you can learn how to use Dynamics. So I will commonly use that in assignments to help students get going when I know I'm introducing new elements. Now, the last thing I'll point out is you see the checkboxes next to each element in the editor. So you can click these and notice I am pinning this particular palette to the top of my editor. So you can customize what you want to see on the top of the editor. If I don't want to see all the score options and I really just want to worry about duration, pitch, and measure, and dynamics, I can choose which elements I want to see. And for some of these, where there's a lot of elements, we even allow you to expand or contract how much you see. So we have the most popular elements, and you could expand out further to add more advanced elements as well. This is really great for iPads or devices with smaller screens where you need as much real estate for the score as possible. Particularly on iPads, it's a lot easier to just bring up the palette you want and then close this and work with that. It functions a lot better, and these icons are a lot easier to touch and find on the iPad. So it's totally up to you as to how you'd like to customize the view of what you're using in Noteflight. So I'll sort of move on from now, but I always like to give a brief overview of how the editor works and how all of that's functioning. In fact, let me show one more thing. I know I said I'd move on. A couple more options. You have different views, so you can view in strip view, you can view in sort of a perform view, which is a full page. You can go back to page view. You have all these different view options. If I want to add additional instruments, I can just add instruments. So I'm going to add the trumpet, the most amazing, glorious of all instruments. And we have a search box here. Again, you could use the categories as an option too. I'll add the English horn, because what goes better with trumpet than English horn, right? Or I can add whatever I like. So one cool thing here is as you add instruments, you can reorder them simply by dragging and selecting the instrument order over here, and it reorders it in the staff for you. So you have all of these options as well on the score. Now, by default, Noteflight is in concert pitch, but of course you can toggle right to transpose view with your transposing instruments as well. So that's one thing I'll always show students. It's always defaulting to concert pitch, but if I'm sharing a score with students and I want them to be able to see their transposed view, I always make sure that I'm sharing it in transposed view, so when my students open it, they see it in transposed view. So let's talk about creating assignments. So we talked about this idea of activity templates in Noteflight, and this is something that's really cool because whenever you assign something to students, you have lots of options. Let me actually show you these options before I go into the demo. So in the Connect panel is where you share everything with students. Everything you create, everything your students create is your score. It's not automatically shared with anyone. It's all private to you. As a note, teachers can always go into students' accounts and see what they're working on. So I just want to mention that as a teacher user, you can always click on your students and see what scores are in their account. So we have these access ideas. So if I want to share a score with everyone, I can just hit all cite and anyone can search and find it. What this does is this means that every user in my school demo sites could see this. So you have the option of kids creating things and just sharing it with the whole school or all the students that are in your Noteflight site to say, hey, check out what I did. This is really awesome. Or you could uncheck this box, which means that it's not shared in the public scores area, but anyone you send this link to will be able to view it. So if you have a scale sheet or some A2 that you want students just to be able to view but not edit, you could just send them the link as a view and they can view it at any time. Or I can share this with a group. So let's assume this might be a trumpet exercise. I could say that my trumpet, I just start typing my group name, my group search up, and I can say, okay, I want my trumpets to be able to comment on this score, and they can talk about how much better each of them could play it than the other person, because that's what trumpet players do. Or I could just share it with one individual. So you have all these share options, and you can save these. Now, You can also choose if people can copy their own version. So no matter how I share it, I can always say anyone can make a copy of the score into their account and edit it how they see fit. But the one I really want to point out is this idea of activity template. What this does is turns your score into a template for all the activities that students will be completing, which means that as soon as this button is checked, anyone who opens this score by when you send them the link, in this case, you've said that everyone on the site has access to this score, but I'm going to make it an activity. When a student opens it, it opens up a custom copy for that student. So let's say I have an exercise like this where I want students to complete anything I want them to do, whether it's a recording, whether it's a composition. This is an exercise I'd like them to complete. I've already shared this as an activity template. I've used this for a long time. Notice in the upper right, I have 19 copies of this. Every time a student opens my activity template, it automatically makes a copy. I can view mine, but I can see all the students that have done it, when they did it, and I can quickly go in and view that student's work. So now you see it didn't change my original template, but this is what Dawn completed. It looks like at some point Dawn made a recording, and you see I have some sort of annotation here that I've written for the student. I've screamed passing tones at them apparently. And we've had some sort of comment in the comment panel. So notice that I'm looking at Dawn's score, but I'm the teacher looking at student Dawn's work. So this is a really easy way to do any type of assignment. Students don't have to worry about emailing you anything. They don't have to worry about submitting. They just have to complete it and hit save. Now on Thursday, I'll show you if you use Google Classroom integration, this feature is directly integrated with the Google Classroom stream, and that students can, the turn-in button for the assignment actually shows up on the Noteflight score when you're integrated with Google Classroom, which is really cool. But we'll show that on Thursday. So activity templates are great, and you can even do them for recording. So I talked about recording earlier. Here's an example of a recording activity. Now, you'll see this one is probably me being a little lazy, because what I've done is I've told students to select your instrument to transpose this. If I have a large band or choir or even orchestra, you know, I could create this individually for every single student, or I could sort of teach them to fish and teach them to use the instruments panel and change the instrument. So if they want to do this for alto sax, they can do it for alto sax. Notice I've shared this in, not in concert pitch, so all the student has to do is change their instrument and it automatically transposes it for that student. So this allows me as a teacher to set up one melody or one sight reading exercise that I want to send for students, and I can send them that particular exercise and say, hey, select your instrument and then record it. Now I know sometimes with certain tunes the range does, and you have to start splitting octaves, and there may be slight rearrangements for certain instruments in certain ranges, and in those cases I recommend creating a group. So if you know you have certain instruments, like you're in the key of F, and your brass players aren't up to a trumpet or G on top of the staff or high F or whatever, and you start splitting octaves or editing it, well, or you don't want your clarinets to cross the break yet, you might create a group in Noteflight for those particular students that use the altered version, and so you would actually make one version to share with one group, one for a second group, just whatever makes it easier. But the point is, you don't have to make individual assignments for every student. You can choose to just send them something and let them select their instrument. So let me go back to clarinet, just so we can see where this goes. I'm going to save. And so we have, in Noteflight, we have record mode. So you can go into record mode, and it allows you to audio record directly into your score. Now, I am using my microphone right now to do a webinar, and I'm also going to attempt to use my microphone to record into Noteflight. So we'll see if this works. These are one of these things that you should test in advance, but let's see what happens. So really, there's a lot of settings here, but it's really set up that you could just hit start and be counted off. I'm going to listen to my pitch first. Okay, so I'm going to do my one count off. Please forgive the singing that's about to happen. Da, 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 da. I'll spare you the rest of that. But notice immediately it showed up that John Malinzak, because that's the user that's using it right now, made a recording. And notice the track in the mixer has selected that the playback is now set for John Malinzak instead of the Noteflight instrument playback. So you have this option, and notice that we also show a little waveform. This is just a graphic rendering of the waveform to visually show that recorded audio exists on the score. So this is sort of a blend of an audio recording and a notation file. But it just lets you know, if you open the score, you see the audio indicator on the left and you see the visual, so you know a recording exists. Now, I could have another student record and another. You can have as many, each individual can record one track per musical staff. So I could have 10 different people with their recorded versions, and I could multi-select how many people I want to hear back at any time. So this could be something that I could have a student. First of all, let me just play and show you. Sounds better than any clarinet I've ever heard, am I right? Sorry, just kidding. I apologize, clarinetists. But you see that it recorded super easy. I just went to the thing and it worked. So I could use this, of course, for playing tests, but I could also use this to maybe have my first chair player record the exact phrasing and we want of this piece, and then I could send that score as an activity to all of my other clarinet players and have them practice recording along with their section leader. Or, so you could use this in all sorts of ways. You could have students record duets with each other. You could have students record duets with themselves, give them 2 parts and let them record. So there's all sorts of cool things you can do. But again, if you're doing playing assessments, you create a melody, you share it with students as an activity template, they open it, do their recording, hit save, and that's it. And you could go in and see every student's recording, and then you could comment, or I'll tell you what I like to do as a teacher. I actually just hit record and give audio feedback right to the student. That shows up as a separate track. And it's really cool because the students love going to their recording and clicking on Mr. Malinzak and hearing Mr. Malinzak's feedback. And I'm actually a kind of a slow typer, so it's much easier for me to listen to the student once, go back, hit record, and just talk about what I hear, just like it's a festival or solo and ensemble tape with a judge commenting, and they get an audio recording from me giving them feedback. So super easy way to quickly assess all of this. I'm also a huge fan of peer review and cultivating really positive communities where students can actually engage and help each other. So a lot of my assignments, and we'll talk a little bit more of this on Thursday in the Google Apps for Education, but a lot of my playing tests include having students record something, share it with their group or their section, and then the part of the assignment is 2 people. You have to give comments, positive comments, on 2 people's recordings. And so everyone has to record one and comment on 2 people's stuff. And then I always make the students go back and re-record their part based on the feedback and then talk about what they learned from their peers and why it's better. So I do things like that all the time. So what I'll do is in the actual assignment, I'll type all of those instructions, which is another thing we should talk about is creating assignments. In Noteflight, we have this idea of a text prompt, which is where you put sort of all your assignments. And it's in the text palette, and it's called the prompt. So when you show prompt, it's this box here. This is a text prompt box designed specifically for creating assignments. So I could say, record yourself. I can actually edit this in here with the students. Then share with your section group and comment on 2 other recordings. So I can write all of my little instructions here, and this follows. The cool thing about this particular field is you can kind of type, you can type as many instructions as you need to and hit enter, and it automatically sort of spaces everything out for you. So when you're doing instructions, always use your prompt. And then we have these other ways of feedback in text called annotations, which is a good way to annotate one note, like, I don't know, you just put text in this box, and then that way the student sees there's an annotation, and they see that I'm adding notes instead of clicking my annotation. But they can see the text right there. So you can also add individual annotations for notes, or last option is you can type comments in the side box and just give students comments here. So lots of options. And in fact, a lot of times I'll make students comment their feedback using the comment option when they see other people's scores. That way, the students have the ability, you have full visibility on all of the comments that are happening. So all of this is available in Noteflight. Now, the cool thing is, not only can you create music in Noteflight, we give you a little over, right now it's over 500 scores that are included. So in Noteflight Learn, you have a library at the top, and it's called the Noteflight Learn Content Library. You can click on this, and inside this library, as the list populates, there are hundreds of scores, and we have them organized in multiple categories, including sight reading, scales, theory exercises, melodies, chorales, and composition exercises, and we are adding to these constantly. Now, we also give you the opening key, but remember, all of these are Noteflight files, so they can be transposed in any way you would like them to be transposed. So let's say I want to grab a sight reading example, and let's say I want something, I mean, for purpose of argument, I can say I want something in B flat, but of course, it doesn't really matter because I can change the key of anything. So we have all these numbered assignments. Let's grab, I don't know, number 2. So you can preview all of these scores in the library. And again, every student and teacher has access to this library. We put some little helpful tips in here if students want to do this. So we have a little sight reading exercise. If you like this and you'd like to use it with your students, you can just check out a copy. What this does is it takes it from the library and brings it into your own scores, where you can use it just like any Noteflight score you have. So I can check out a copy, and of course students can just peruse and find this. You can create activities and have students, you know, give them choice. Say, find your favorite sight reading exercise, check it out, and share it with me when you're done. Now, if I want to change this up, I can always, you know, transpose this. Not an option at all. So we can actually go and transpose this particular score. Let's say we'll do it up major third, it's D major. It's going to bring the key signature with it. So there it is. Now the whole thing's in D major. And so I can send this to students. I can adjust the comment. I can say, you know, make sure you select your instrument first. I always recommend taking off concert pitch, so when the student selects their instrument, it actually shows it in the transposed key. And if I want to edit this, I can even edit it. You know, it's a full Noteflight score, so you can do this, change the name, whatever. So check something out of the library, use it, go in here, share it with your whole site. Every student can find it, and then make it an activity template, and you're good to go. And now every student in the site can find sight reading number 2 and either record it, send it to you, however they like to do. You also have a version history. So I only have 2 versions because I've hit save, but you can also see all the versions. So if you tell students, sight read this on the first try, and then you see like 27 different versions, you'll know how many times they tried and edited stuff. So you have that option as well. So again, with Noteflight Learn, you know, we have, the idea is we want students to have access to be able to create music on any device. We want students to be able to access content that is exciting to them, that is fun. So we want them to be able to record. We want to give you an opportunity as teachers to be able to easily create assignments and have an opportunity to teach music. So I always think about like anything that you share with students that you're used to sharing with them, whether it's scale sheets or etudes, having them in Noteflight allows students to hear it, play along with it, record along with it, however you'd like to do it. So, you know, back in that library, students can search all these famous melodies. We actually have a lot of chorales in here, which are great for warm-ups or even small ensemble exercises. I love having students pair themselves in groups of 4 and using the Noteflight content library to find a chorale and change the instruments to match those 4 instruments and perform it. I think that's a very fun exercise. And in order to make this happen, all of our chorales, in fact, are separated into 2-stave or 4-stave options. So if you want to do it for analysis or piano, we do it as a 2-stave option where you actually get the chorale with sort of SATB style. Or we give you a 4-stave option of the same chorale where we've already exploded the parts so you can create an individual part. So here's the 2-stave option, and here's the 4-stave option. We give you both versions of every chorale so you can use them how you'd like to use them. Now, also inside the Noteflight Learn content libraries, in addition to what we're giving you included with Noteflight Learn, there's actually a growing population of what we call premium content libraries, where we've actually worked with publishers, including Hal Leonard, who we are actually a Hal Leonard company. We are part of the Hal Leonard family. But we have already converted thousands of pieces of music as fully adaptable, editable, recordable Noteflight digital files. So one of my favorites is the pop library. I'm going to cut down on some of my tabs here. Or let's say you teach orchestra, you can go in the orchestra library and you can just, you could subscribe for an additional fee to this library so students can access anything in the library. This is all publisher-owned music, but we have a special arrangement to allow students and teachers to access unlimited use of everything in this library for only $5 a year. So that's an additional fee. We'll talk about that. And again, all of this is editable. So again, I'm a huge Broadway fan, so I may go into Show Tunes and find one of my favorite songs I like to do, and I'm in the pop library. Who doesn't love Les Mis? So I can pull up I Dreamed a Dream. Now, of course, I'm a trumpet player, so I could play this much higher than it's written. So I could check out a copy. I can make the solo line a trumpet line. I could transpose it. I can make the whole thing higher and higher and higher and higher. I can change the key of the piece. So however you like to do this. I've just checked out this library because I happen to own this library. I can go into instruments. I can take the voice part and say, I want this to be a trumpet. There it is. Ta-da. I'm going to transpose it. There's my trumpet line already in there. And I can even choose to view just my part. So one of the cool things about the way Noteflight works is our scores and parts are essentially dynamically linked, meaning that you don't have your parts separate from your score. You can actually look at the score and see everything. So let me pull up an orchestra piece and actually show what this looks like. So everyone sees the full score, but if I just want to isolate the first violin part, well, I can go in the instrument and just select the first violin part, and then we create a violin part. Now let's say I want to practice with violin 1 and violin 2 together. I can select both. We create a violin 2 part. Let's say I want to bring the piano in here. I can bring the piano. Let's say I want to bring it all back. I can bring it all back. So as a teacher, you could share this score with your students and say, I'd like you to practice, violin 2, measure whatever, or I'd like you to work on, find your part and record your whole part for playing assessment. And if I'm the viola player, first of all, I'm lost. But once I become found, sorry, violists, I know. Well, I had to, owe the cornet player as a joke to someone else. But I could select the viola part, and I could go in and just isolate my part. So students can do this on their own and create any sort of version on this. And again, these are all editable files. You can record to it, and you can do, you can make different adaptations. You could even make different arrangements. So with the paid content libraries, the published content, you can do anything you want to these in Noteflight except print them. I just want to be very clear that, for $5 a year, we're not going to let you print 200 full scores. But the idea is that these are in here for sight reading. These are in here to have additional content to support the content you're playing in class. So if you're performing a piece and you have it in the content library, you can use it for assessments. Students can find work they want. And so that's how all of this works. The last thing I'll say about content libraries before I wrap up and take questions is that one of the cool things about the way we've designed this is you don't actually have to purchase content for every single user. You certainly can, but let's say that I have the choir library. Let's say I have 200 students using my Noteflight Learn site, but my choir is only 40 students. Well, I can purchase 40 choir libraries, and all I do is go in the library and go into members, and just like we saw with groups earlier, I can actually go in and select which students. Like in this case, you see I'm only allowed 100 members. So I can select which students have access. All I have to do is click the student name, and now any of these students has full access to the library. A lot of times you can rotate them out. I can give a set of students access for a month. I could take it away. Sorry, Barbara, Bobby, and Cheryl, you no longer can have content libraries. So sad. And then I can add more students. So it doesn't have to be the same student all year. If you buy 50 choir libraries for the full year, you can have up to 50 of your users in that library at any given time. But you can rotate out who is in there at any time. So it's a great way. Students love the POP library. I always like to have, the POP library is one that you use, so you can rotate it out so students at least have access to sight read and play and enjoy that music. Because one of the coolest things for a kid to do is find their favorite pop song, play it on their instrument along with piano accompaniment, record themselves playing it, and be able to go home and share that with their parents, which I think is just something that's really awesome. So that's Noteflight Learn. I'll also point out that we are here to support you. We have a very dedicated team of professional educators that are on staff that are developing Noteflight, that are working on Noteflight, that are also here at any time. So when you purchase or even try a demo, we give you step-by-step instructions of everything. So we're not just going to leave you out there. You have step-by-step instructions of how to set up your site. We have step-by-step instructions for activity templates with clear links to how to do everything. So all of this is available, and we're going to give you this link. And every time we have questions, if we have a common question that we can't answer, we create another detailed description of how to do all of this. We even give lesson ideas. We have articles on sample lesson ideas you can use. We have articles on creativity and collaboration, ideas on teaching creativity in your classroom. And we have a full team. The other thing I'll say is when you purchase Noteflight Learn, use us. Email us and say, I'd love for you to, I'd love to have a one-on-one session about how I can get the most out of this. One of our team members will log on with you. We'll even show you in your account how you can best use it. Or if you'd like to Skype us in or in with your students and have your students come have someone from Noteflight Skype in one day, we're happy to do that. We love talking to students. So we have a full team of people that are specialties anywhere from music theory to jazz to composition, all sorts of areas. And actually I have 2 more team members to add to this post tomorrow. So we have a growing team of people that were available. So really we want to be partners in the success of your students. Now with that, I'll just kind of wrap up some of the common questions of, how much does it cost? So Noteflight Learn is $69 for 10 users. And a user is generally yourself as the teacher plus 9 students. Though, of course, you could assign users to be teachers or students. It's only $2 for every additional student. So it's $69 for 10 users plus $2 for everyone you need. And you can purchase a Noteflight Learn site for yourself and your classes, for your school. We have entire school districts that use it. We can do that. If you are a school district, we can even do this where we can set up an individual site for every school and have one administrator have access to all of it. We can do all of that. If you can find a scenario we haven't supported, I would dare you to do it. And if you do, we'll support it. So not worried about it. In addition, if you'd like to add one of the paid libraries, remember everyone gets all the included content, but if you'd like to add pop or band or choir or orchestra or piano or guitar, it's only $5 per user, and you select which users have access. And at any time during your subscription, you can actually add additional content libraries and additional users. So if you're not sure, start with 100, start with 200. If 2 months from now you have 5 students add, you could easily just go on the site and click, I need 5 more students. You can put a PO number in or a credit card and hit go, and it automatically updates your account at any time. So it's all automatic. If you need to add 20 content libraries second semester, you can add them. And if you add them during your subscription, we actually prorate the cost. So if you add a user halfway into your subscription, we're only going to charge you $1 for that user because you're only using it for half your subscription. So get started with what you have and add as you need to add folks at any time. If you'd like to try it out first, we will give you a full 60-day demo with 50 users. So all you have to do is go to the noteflight.com/learn site. There's a big old request demo button. Fill that out, and we will automatically set you up with 50 users for 60 days. If you'd like to demo with Google Classroom, or if you'd like to demo with Canvas or Moodle, on the demo form, there's a little box that says questions or comments. Just put that in the questions or comments box, say Google Classroom, please. I'll make sure we set you up with a demo that works with Google Classroom or something else. That's totally fine. By default, we're going to set you up with your own site. And again, it does it in there. We're there. We have our full blog with articles after article after article of support. We offer professional development, and we are a full team of experienced educators that teach currently, that have taught, and we do this all the time. So we enjoy this. At this point, I'm going to break to take any questions you have. But if you need follow-up or any personal assistance, you can always email info@noteflight.com, and one of our team members will get back with you right away. So thank you so much, and I'm going to open it up for questions.